there, welcome to Ipsy Digs It. I'm Ipsy, and on today's video, we're back for a second round of 90s romance movies. If you're curious what this series is all about, why I'm making it, and how I would personally define a romance movie, go ahead and check out the first video. I'll have it linked down below in the description. If 90s romance movie reviews are right up your alley and you're looking for some movie suggestions, feel free to subscribe and join me on this journey. Now that we've gotten all of that out of the way, let's begin part 2 of the series with the next 10 90s romance movies. Joe versus the Volcano, Strictly Ballroom, Benny and June, Only You, Bed of Roses, Picture Perfect, Shakespeare in Love, The Wedding Singer, Notting Hill, She's All That. So, as I said, I listed those movies in chronological order. Moving forward, I'm going to talk about them starting with my least favorite and end the video with my favorite of the bunch. And to be perfectly honest, these first 3 movies are basically tied for last place, but for the sake of the video, I ranked them anyways. Number 10, She's All That. Zach gets dumped by his girlfriend after she comes back from a rowdy spring break. His friends give him shit for it, and Dean, played by Paul Walker, ends up goading him into making a bet. Zach is confident he could turn any girl at their school into prom queen just by association. Dean chooses Lainey as his conquest, and Zach gets to work. Only Lainey isn't interested. Zach isn't about to lose the bet though, so he continues to pursue Lainey until he gains her trust, and they both begin to fall for each other. Here's the thing. I feel like this movie was beloved when it first came out, but I personally didn't enjoy it on the rewatch. I hate the trope of ugly girl goes unnoticed until she gets a makeover and then suddenly everyone can see how amazing she is. There's so much female objectification and fat phobia, women hating on women in this movie. It's all over the place. On top of that, Freddie Prinze Jr. and Rachel Lee Cook don't actually have any chemistry together. And I totally remember them having awesome chemistry, but all they really do in this movie is just stare at each other blankly, and that's supposed to be chemistry between them. Romantic foundation, yeah, I guess there's some there. I mean, both characters do improve by the end of the movie because they're in this relationship, but the whole relationship is based off of a lie. You know, if Lainey did end up falling in love with Zach through the process of getting to know him and decided to forgive him at the end, then fine, I guess, but there's just not enough chemistry between the characters to make that very believable. Plus, they're both going off to college. I don't even think to the same one, so who knows how long this relationship is actually going to last. I did not expect to be putting this movie at the very bottom of my list. I can't really be mad at the premise because it's similar to one of my favorite movies, 10 Things I Hate About You. I can be mad that I had to sit through all that misogyny and there wasn't even a decent amount of chemistry between the main characters. Paul Walker and Anna Paquin were the best part of this movie, and I wouldn't even consider them to be very good actors. But they deserve credit in this movie because they were definitely the highlights. I would not recommend this movie for new or old viewers. It aged like a glass of warm milk. Number 9, Picture Perfect. Kate works in advertising. She's good at it, only her boss doesn't want to promote her because she's not tied down to the company or to a mortgage or to a man. So her friend lies and tells everyone she's engaged to a guy she took a photo with at a wedding. That was the extent of their interaction. When Kate finds out, she's initially pissed, but then she gets the promotion she wanted, and the guy at work she has a crush on is all of a sudden interested in her, so why not go along with it? That is until her so-called fiance gets famous for being heroic. So she goes to him and explains the situation, offers to pay him to come to a dinner with her coworkers so that they can break up in front of everyone. The guy is willing. He doesn't want her money. He just wants the opportunity to spend time with her. So he goes along with it. The premise is actually an interesting one, but unfortunately, Jennifer Aniston and Jay Moore are some of the most unlikable characters I've ever seen on screen. Kate is this terrible person with very few redeeming qualities, other than her looks, which seems to be the only reason why Nick wants to hang out with her. She's so terrible to him, I don't know why he's attracted to her other than her physical appearance. Nick is supposed to be this likable character, but every time Kate rejects him, the actor, Jay Moore, gets this look in his eye like he's a hair's breadth away from bashing her face in. He's supposed to be this great guy who takes the rejection really well, but he looks like a psychopath. Jennifer Aniston as an actress always has this like bit of an edge to her, which works really great in some movies, like she uses it perfectly in The Good Girl. It doesn't fit this character very well. I believe the moments when she's supposed to find Nick admirable or interesting, but at no point do I ever think that she's actually attracted to him. As far as romantic foundation, the main characters are two people with absolutely nothing in common, completely different priorities in life. They don't even seem like they like each other that much. I think the plot is really interesting, and with two other actors, this could have been a really great movie. That's really the only reason why it's in 9th place. That and Kevin Bacon is really hot in the movie. The plot and Kevin Bacon are basically the movie's two redeemable qualities. I wouldn't recommend this movie to my worst enemy. Number 8, The Wedding Singer. Robbie and Julia are co-workers. Robbie works as a wedding singer, Julia is a waitress. They bond over the fact that they're both engaged and getting married soon. Only Robbie gets stood up at the altar. Despite his depression and his best efforts to stay away from anything having to do with weddings, he ends up spending time with Julia, helping her plan her own wedding, and the two fall in love. The chemistry between Adam Sandler and Drew Barrymore is alright. I mean, for me, it just seems like these two actors really enjoy hanging out with each other, and that energy can be interpreted as chemistry, but it doesn't feel very romantic. On top of that, like most of the women in Adam Sandler movies, Julia isn't a very multi-dimensional character. For me, that's kind of an important thing when it comes to romantic foundation in a movie. Are the characters fleshed out, complete humans that another person could fall in love with? Julia is a perfect example of this. She's sweet and charming, and she's excited to get married. And that's about all there is to her character. We know Robbie wanted to be a rock star and that he enjoys doing nice things for people, but what about Julia? She's basically just there to giggle at Robbie's jokes and be admiring of him. And then when Robbie finds out that Julia's fiance is cheating on her, instead of telling his friend what's going on, he decides to keep it to himself because of guy code, even though he owes the fiance absolutely nothing. Similar to She's All That, there's a lot of objectification and misogyny in this movie. There's a scene in the movie where this kid puts his hands on Julia's butt and Robbie tells her to just go with it, even though she clearly looks alarmed at first. And Julia is doing this kid a favor in a way, where he was rejected by the girl that he asked to dance, and so Julia and Robbie go through this effort of making him feel better about himself, and then basically gropes her for it. It's like, no wonder that other girl didn't want to dance with him. Freaking super gross. It's just a really terrible scene. The only reason I put this movie at number 8 is because the song that Adam Sandler sings at the end of the movie is actually pretty sweet and romantic, but at the end of the day, it's just a cute cherry on top of a shit sundae. Probably pretty obvious at this point that I'm not exactly an Adam Sandler fan. His movies often follow a similar pattern where a man-child falls in love with a woman who has no dimension to her. I know that there are a lot of people that really do love this movie. I think it just wasn't written for someone like me. Barrymore is an extremely charming actress, but even her charm can't make this movie watchable for me. If you've seen it before, it's probably because you're an Adam Sandler fan. If you haven't seen it before, it's probably because you're not. I wouldn't personally recommend this movie, but I know that there's lots of people out there that really do love Adam Sandler and the movies that he makes. Number 7, Joe versus the volcano. Joe works at a job that's sucking the life out of him and feels like he's always sick. He finally finds a doctor who is able to diagnose him. Not only is he a hypochondriac, but he's also got something called brain fog. It's got no symptoms, but according to the doctor, he will be dead in about 6 months. So Joe quits his job in a glorious fashion, and soon after is approached by a wealthy man who has a proposition. He needs Joe to willingly jump into a volcano because the native people there believe there needs to be a human sacrifice every 100 years to keep the volcano from going off. In exchange, Joe gets to live in luxury for 20 days, and then he gets to die, quote-unquote, like a man. So Joe versus the volcano is described as a rom-com. See? Says it right here. It's absolutely not. The movie's definitely funny, but it's more of a satire on morality. Mortality. About the way that we choose to live or not live as a society. There's also some sort of commentary going on about Indigenous people. I can't tell if it's supposed to be a commentary about the creator's ignorant views or society's ignorant views. Either way, it comes across as pretty insulting. Maybe that was intentional. Maybe there's some sort of nuanced conversation happening there, but if there is, it went straight over my head. From my perspective, it just comes across as ignorant and offensive. And then when it comes to the romance, there's very little to be found here. If we're using my definition of a romance movie, this one doesn't cut the cake. It does not fit the bill at all. Every moment that happens in this movie would have happened exactly the same way if there was or wasn't a romance between Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan. Her grand gesture at the end may have had some sort of influence on their fate, but it's never acknowledged. They never explain why things happen the way they happen. There's even a theory that maybe they never actually made it to the island, that everything that happens there is just a fever dream that Joe experiences as he starts to experience dehydration and from spending too much time in the sun. Joe and Patricia do have some chemistry together, and there is actually a decent amount of romantic foundation for them. Joe admires the way that Patricia lives her life, and I would imagine if they live past the credits rolling, that they would have many great adventures together. The film itself, though, I don't buy as a romance. This is an entertaining movie, for sure. It definitely got me thinking about a lot of things, especially after Joe decides to take the money from the old rich guy. Joe goes from not wanting to waste the little life he has left at a dead-end job to then wasting the little life he has left to jump into the volcano. Also that he can buy some new clothes and sleep in nice hotels for a week and then die like a man so that his life will mean something. But to who? Who is his life going to mean something to? The people that live on the island? The rich man who wants to have access to their valuable metals? He even meets this amazing woman who would happily spend the rest of his life sailing the world together, and then he decides to jump in the volcano anyways. Sorry, it's kind of a spoiler, but give me a break. Like, go be happy with this woman while you still have some life left to live. I do really love Meg Ryan's performance. Well, performances. She plays multiple characters in this movie, and it's really fun. There's one scene in particular that stood out to me as the highlight of this movie, where Patricia and Joe are talking in the darkness of the cabin. I absolutely loved what she said and the way that she said it. Even though this movie isn't a romance, I would still recommend it, just for the fact that it's an interesting premise and it's thought-provoking and it has a lot of really hilarious performances. Whether you've never seen the movie or it's been a while, I would definitely recommend watching it. Again, even though it's not a romance, it's much better than the last 3 romance movies I talked about. Number 6, Bed of Roses. Mary Stuart Masterson plays Lisa. She's a woman focused on her career in a convenient situationship with Danny, played by Josh Brolin. When she finds out her adoptive father has died, she receives a bouquet of flowers the next day. It turns out they were from the man who delivered the flowers. Lewis, played by Christian Slater, witnessed Lisa's moment of grief and wanted to provide this stranger with some comfort. They start dating, and despite their past traumas, they work to overcome those obstacles to be together. There's not a lot to say about this movie's plot. It's a relatively simple and mundane story. One person is struggling to be vulnerable, and the other is almost overzealous with their availability, not wanting to make the same mistakes they had previously made in other relationships. I think this movie is supposed to be about the chemistry between these characters, and if you saw my previous video, you know I'm a big fan of Christian Slater. That man could make chemistry with a rock, and I would totally buy it. Mary Stuart Masterson plays this character really well. I think every movie I've seen her in, she plays some sort of version of this character. I don't know that there really is that much chemistry between the two characters, though. Because of the way that her character is, there's really not that much chemistry between her and Lewis. Her character is supposed to be guarded and hesitant, but it's almost too much. It had me wondering, like her character does, why Lewis falls in love with her. Before the two start dating, Lisa isn't really doing much with her life. She works a lot and she has one best friend that she sees for drinks on occasion, and she's dating this guy on and off who doesn't have a thoughtful bone in his body. As the relationship between Lisa and Louis grows, the couple only does things that Louis likes to do. Lisa has no hobbies, and she doesn't really have anything to bring to the table. She does have this extremely traumatic past, but that seems to be the only thing her character's personality revolves around. I think having to push past that trauma to meet Louis halfway does give the couple a solid romantic foundation, but on the whole, it doesn't make for a very interesting or compelling romance. I think for a romance to be impactful, you have to have two well-rounded, multi-dimensional counterparts. Louis is a compelling character, but I don't know why he falls for Lisa, other than the fact that she's the first person he noticed once he finally started coming out of his grief. When Lisa is confused by his love for her, we're supposed to interpret this as her being insecure and having her walls up, but it actually made me wonder the same question myself, and I couldn't think of an answer. If you're a fan of Christian Slater, I'd definitely give this movie a watch, otherwise it's pretty safe to skip it. Okay guys, I know that this list has been pretty rough so far, but I've got good news. The rest of these movies are an absolute delight. Number 5, Benny and June. Benny is the older brother to June, whose mental health issues include schizophrenia, OCD, Asperger's, and PTSD from their parents' death. Benny has spent the majority of his life looking after his little sister. As Benny begins to consider sending June to a group home, June is busy falling in love with Sam, who is described as eccentric. He's obsessed with silent film actors, film in general. He's a performer and has a knack for coming up with creative ways to solve problems. This is definitely a romantic movie. June and Sam falling in love completely changes June's relationship with her brother Benny. On top of that, Benny has a bit of a side romance with a local waitress named Ruthie. The romantic foundation is definitely there, at least for June and Sam. These are two very interesting and nuanced characters before they meet, and falling in love ends up bringing out the best in both of them. Their chemistry is cautious and kind, which I think is absolutely appropriate for the situation that they're in and the experience that they both seem to not have. When it comes to Benny and Ruthie, we don't really get to see much of their relationship other than the awkward moments. So I'm not really a fan of that pairing, just based on what the movie decides to show us. This movie has such a great score. I love the way that the theme song will change periodically to help set the mood of the moment. I was not expecting Benny to be my favorite part of this movie, but I found myself gravitating to his experience this time around. It's funny how becoming a parent and understanding what it is to take care of somebody can change the way that you view a story. I can't speak to whether this movie is respectful or accurate when it comes to its representation of mental health, but as far as romance goes, Sam swinging across the window is one of my favorite romantic movie moments ever. Number 4, Strictly Ballroom. Paul is a professional ballroom dancer who loses his partner before the big competition. He wants to perform his own moves, and she wants no part of it. So while he participates in auditioning new potential dance partners during the day, he secretly works with Fran on her dancing at night. The two connect and slowly begin to fall in love as the big competition approaches. This movie is kind of a mix of Dirty Dancing and She's All That, with Fran's glow up throughout the movie. Only I think this movie accomplishes something that those other movies didn't. First off, I think that both Fran and Paul are much more nuanced and much more likable characters than Baby and Johnny from Dirty Dancing. I like that Fran's glow up in this movie takes time. Unlike Lainey and She's All That, where she gets a makeover and comes down the stairs and all of a sudden everyone sees her as beautiful, Fran's glow up is stretched throughout the entire movie. She slowly and subtly changes over time, and it isn't until the final performance that we see her in her full glory. And half of her glow up comes from having confidence in herself. Sure, her skin looks better, and she's wearing more flattering outfits, and her hair is perfectly curled around her face. But at this point, Paul has already fallen in love with her personality. Because of this, her glow up feels less surface level than it did in She's All That. I love that it takes Paul finding the courage to stick up for himself for him to then become worthy of Fran, and Paul totally knows this. Romantic foundation wise, they make each other better people throughout the movie, and I don't doubt that that would continue for the rest of their relationship. Part of the reason why this movie holds such a special place in my heart is because of Fran. I'm so grateful that she's such a nuanced and multi-dimensional character. We get to see her family dynamic, how they all push each other to be better in a positive and supportive way versus Paul's family, who tries to shame him and humiliate him into compliance. I love that Fran sticks up for herself when Paul disappoints her, and that she accepts that he's not worthy of her and she moves on. Because of this, I actually had a hard time placing Strictly Ballroom this low on the list. I really wanted to put it at least at number 3, but because this is a plot that I've seen before and the rest of the movies moving forward are unique ideas, I ended up placing it here at number 4. I'd argue that Strictly Ballroom not only has one, but two twin films. Dirty Dancing, as I've already mentioned, but also The Cutting Edge is very similar, and they both came out in the same year. Even though this is a familiar story, it is extremely well done, and I would highly recommend watching it if you haven't seen it. Number 3, Only You. Faith has grown up believing in soulmates. Not only does she believe in soulmates, but she also believes she knows the name of her soulmate, Damon Bradley. So, when she hears the name over the phone, as she's trying on a dress to marry someone else, she drops everything and follows Damon to Europe. That's all I'm going to say about the plot of this movie, because if you haven't seen it, I am not about to be the person that ruins it for you. Part of the joy that this movie brings lies in its many plot twists. One of my favorite aspects of this movie is how Faith is a teacher and talks to her students about soulmates, but how you just have to live your life and not worry about it because your soulmate is going to cross paths with you because they're your soulmate. And then she does the exact opposite. She goes running across Europe chasing after a name, missing her literal Cinderella moment, totally disregarding the chemistry she has with somebody because she's looking for Damon Bradley. The chemistry between Marisa Tomei and Robert Downey Jr. is excellent. The movie does have one caveat though, the amount of manipulation and lying that one character participates in. I get that they do it in the name of love and that they feel like they're doing it for the right reasons, but it makes me wonder if this character will continue to use those tactics once they get what they want. It's like, if it's circumstantial, then it's romantic. If it's a character trait, then it's a red flag. I love that Robert Downey Jr.'s character in this movie is so observant and thoughtful and really great with accessories and fashion. I think in that aspect he portrays a really excellent example of positive masculinity. His connection with Marisa Tomei is one of my favorites of the romantic movie genre. That man can serve up charm and chemistry like nobody else. I love the plot, I love the chemistry, I love the romantic foundation, and apart from that one caveat I already mentioned, this movie is damn near perfect. Number 2, Shakespeare in Love. Shakespeare must write his new play, but he lacks inspiration. He is in need of a muse, and he finds one in Viola, only to discover Viola is also Thomas Kent, the lead in his new production. This movie has chemistry up the damn wazoo. Almost every scene that Paltrow and Fiennes have together is packed with energy. One of my favorite scenes in the movie is when Thomas Kent and Shakespeare are in the boat together, and Shakespeare is talking about Viola, not realizing yet that Thomas Kent actually is Viola. The romantic foundation is also solid. Viola loves Shakespeare for his words before she ever falls in love with the man. While Shakespeare's interest in Viola is superficial at first, he already adores Master Kent for his ability to act before he finds out that the two are one and the same. I know this movie has gotten a lot of hate over the years. People argue it's overrated, that Gwyneth Paltrow shouldn't have won her Oscar for Best Actress, that the movie should have never won Best Picture. I'm not super invested in its Best Picture win, but for the rest of it, I would have to disagree. I love this movie. I think it's clever and well written. I think it's Gwyneth Paltrow's best acting ever. I love the way that she performs Shakespearean prose and verse. I think Joseph Fiennes also makes an excellent Shakespeare. There is a rumor that Harvey Weinstein had a lot to do with how well this movie did at the Oscars that year, winning over Saving Private Ryan. Personally, I'm not upset that a romance won over a war movie. And now, 26 years later, I still think it's an absolute joy to watch. Also, another great movie score. It's so grand and hopeful. The whole movie just feels like magic to me. Number 1, Notting Hill. William works at a travel bookstore that famous actress Anna Scott happens into one day. She buys a book and leaves, only for them to literally run into each other later that day. William, who's carrying orange juice, spills it all over Anna's blouse. Thankfully, he lives right across the street, so she goes to his place to change her clothes. They end up spending some time together and begin to fall in love. This is such a great story with two well-rounded, fully functioning, multi-dimensional characters who happen to meet and fall in love with each other. They both bring a lot to the table in their own way, and it's really easy to see why they fall in love with each other. It's also really fun to watch them stumble through their romance. The chemistry's there, the romantic foundation is there. I literally don't have a single bad thing to say about this movie. There's no major misunderstanding that would have been easily fixable with a little bit of communication. They just find themselves coming from two different perspectives because they're people who've lived two different lives. It feels grounded and magical both at the same time. This movie totally caught me off guard. I did not remember it being this good. Maybe it's because these two actors have gone on to do somewhat mediocre work since then, but I was not expecting this movie to be at the top of my list. Either I totally forgot or I just never really appreciated the insane amount of chemistry that Hugh Grant and Julia Roberts were able to create with each other. It's such a great story and packed with interesting characters and humorous moments and adorable awkwardness. I enjoyed every minute of it. And that wraps up the second part of my 90s romance series. This was a fun one, and I was genuinely surprised by my reaction to some of them. I hope you're having as much fun revisiting these movies as I am. Or at least you're encouraged to watch some of them if you haven't seen them before. Thank you so much for sticking around until the end, and until next time.